Alright. So, uh, let's begin again from last year. So, if you attended SUGCON year 2023, then our faces must be familiar because we had the chance to present back last year on one of the Sitecore's product, Discover, which is an AI-powered marketing and merchandising solution for e-commerce platforms. Last year we talked about that product and its features at great length, but this time it's a bit different because we are going to talk about something personal. We are here to share our journey of how we transitioned from working on traditional Sitecore projects to the headless ones. For developers, especially .NET backend developers, this transition is a big shift and can be a bit daunting because we are accustomed to working in a certain way on the .NET side. So today we're going to cover that. So as we are talking about journey, experiences, and my colleague and my co-speaker here, Mahima, tell us how long have you been working on Sitecore?
It's been around 10 years.
Alright, 10 years is a good amount of time. So we'd like you to describe your journey. Now let's make it a bit fun. Describe it in just 2 words.
2 words. I think I can explain it in single image. So, yeah, here it is. I don't need any further explanation for that. However, it was a joyful, bit painful, but a good learning experience over the last 10 years.
Alright, and what version of Sitecore did you begin with?
So I began with Sitecore 6.5 version. It was old but not too old. Has anyone sitting here worked on Sitecore version 6.5? Oh, that's great. So I'm not old enough. Thank you guys. Okay. I would love to speak more about this particular version, but you know what? At this point, my memories don't stack over for exception. So, but I clearly remember some of the revolutionary changes for last 2 decades that Sitecore has introduced. So, on 6.x versions, we had ASP.NET web forms, wherein we, for writing the codes, we used to create subjects and ASX pages, and for layout, we used to work on ASPX. After ASP.NET web forms, Sitecore introduced ASP.NET MVC. They came the MVC controller, MVC rendering, view, and model concept scheming picture, where we used to create all of the HTML, CSS, and the fields and the models were inside the model, and controller used to contain all of the business logic and columns were there. After ASP.NET MVC, they introduced analytics. Along with analytics, they introduced experience DB, and along with experience DB, they also introduced that the data will be stored into MongoDB, which is not such a database. So there was a bit of learning experience there. After that, they introduced SXA ASP.NET MVC, which was the loved product or loved feature that they introduced. Along with SXA, there came so many out-of-the-box components, so many things that we eventually used to do in the config patch file. They already provided the integrations that we can do using Sitecore CMS itself. Okay. And you still audible. Okay. So, sorry, I'm a little lost here. Okay, so with this. So after, we got SXA, ASP.NET MVC. The reason behind sharing all of these revolutionary changes is to highlight that evolution that Sitecore has went through in itself and its technology within the last 2 decades. While thinking about or we look closely regarding all of these revolutionary changes that Sitecore has introduced, backend developer did not have to worry much regarding what they need to learn. They did not have the worry to go outside and learn the exact or complete new technology stack to understand what Sitecore has introduced. Or we had to worry about few third-party integrations that we need to do depending on project requirement, because we worked on few of the project where the e-commerce platform was somewhere else and CMS platform was Sitecore. So we need to worry about how we are going to integrations, what kind of third-party module this customer or this particular project need, that we need to learn. So I'm not saying that there was not a learning curve in the previous Sitecore versions. However, as compared to the headless one, it was a lesser one. Even if we compare like front-end framework or the front-end solution architecture that we had for the traditional CMS projects, it was just HTML, CSS, the the JS JavaScript framework that whatever suits with the project that we use to integrate.
Alright, now back to 2017, Sitecore released JavaScript services. That was the inception of headless way of doing things. Now, if I look back into my journey when I had to transition from working on a MVC.NET project to the headless one, it was not an easy task because we backend developers are accustomed to doing things in a certain way where we saw the entire solution, entire code base was a single .NET solution with multiple projects in it. Our CMS, our model, view controllers, everything was on the .NET side. But when we go to the headless side of things with JSs, they first introduced only developing the headless things with the modern JavaScript framework. So if you wanted to use that, you have to understand what Next.js, React, and all of those things are. And one other thing that I struggled understanding was what is exactly headless. So this headless was a buzzword there, and maybe that is the reason we have come up with this session, because we wanted to put together all the things that we need to learn to successfully work on a project and share it with the entire audience and the community here, so that you guys have kick start. You're not seeing that you would be masters or you would understand everything about headless in this session, but we will try our best to inculcate some basic understanding of headless services. Now coming back to the headless, the term headless, the word head in headless stands for the front-end application which an end user like you or me would use, would see or interact with in a mobile phone or desktop. And headless emphasizes on keeping your front-end this application separated from the backend. And backend here means the content. And to achieve that, it has introduced the headless services. If we quickly look at this is the traditional CMS, which is the headless way where everything, the database, every panel, and presentation layer, sits tightly covered into one, we can say one box or one system. But with the headless way of doing things, it is separated. You see that you can power any of the websites now with the introduction and with the changing user experience, users interaction with content online. We do not have just a website and a mobile website on desktop and mobiles. We have multiple devices like watches and IoT devices, so that can be possible with this way of doing things. Now, if we look at the Sitecore's headless architecture, this is a pictorial representation of that one. As you can see at the bottom, we have Sitecore XP and XM. On top of that, we see this entire block of headless services. Now, this is what enables the Sitecore's headless nature. We have a lot of services in there, and on top of that, you have two things which are the rendering SDKs, which enable you to consume the headless services and build your front-end applications. Now we will be looking at these headless services and rendering SDKs.
So as Neha already shared, the Sitecore has created this headless architecture. Sitecore has created multiple services, and along with those services, they have created the APIs. So that from any front-end framework, we can directly call those APIs, get the data from Sitecore, and render it anywhere we want, irrespective of any devices or any applications. But Sitecore also provides two rendering SDK so that you can directly integrate these services into your application, and you do not worry about any other configuration or having the manual call to those services to fetch the data. Two of those rendering SDK is JSF, which called as JavaScript rendering SDK, and as you can already see here, it supports all of the modern front-end languages, which is Next.js, GraphQL, and Angular, and another one is .NET Core. So it is also pretty clear that it's supposed to integrate the application using this rendering SDK when you need to choose ASP.NET Core. Sitecore also provides app initializer or SXS starter so that you can directly scaffold your project using these templates. You don't need to do everything from scratch. So even if you are not working on any headless project, we would suggest you to go and do the setup of particular headless environment and check how configurations are going on or how they are creating different components there. It totally depends on your project requirement, on customer need, on what rendering SDK you can choose. It can either JSS or .NET Core, but if you look at natural types of project that we get, Next.js rendering SDK is the most that is getting used. Also with XM Cloud, Sitecore do suggest to use Next.js because all of the features that XM Cloud have are supported by that, and all of the features are not available with ASP.NET Core. So next we move on to Sitecore Headless Services. The first service that comes into picture, if you remember the architecture diagram that was there on the last slide, it was rendering engine. So what is rendering engine? Rendering engine plays a crucial role or crucial part into how Sitecore component is going to get displayed or going to get managed inside the Sitecore environment. It takes all the data from layout service API and render it into whatever application you want. There are two types of implementation that this particular rendering engine provides. One is Node.js and another is HTTP. So you can use Node.js rendering engine if to render your server-side application or do the rendering server-side rendering of your particular application using React, Vue, and Angular. Next is not there, and then comes the second implementation method, which is HTTP rendering. So you can this HTTP rendering engine if you want to do the server-side rendering of your particular application using either the JSS Next.js or core .ASP.NET Core. Okay. The next service is layout service. This is the most common service or mostly used service that we can say. This is Sitecore Headless Service endpoint that exposes the layout data. Now, what is layout data? So, as you are all aware that we create an item, we apply a specific presentation over there, we add page design, partial design, if it's accessible, we add multiple components. We add rendering parameters, we provide different stylings for content content to get added. For all of the components, we add different kind of data sources. This layout service is readily available as an API so that it can leverage the rendering engine to create the JSON from Sitecore content, and then it can get rendered on your application. There are two endpoints available for layout service. One is GraphQL and another one is the layout one. So, another one is the REST API. So you can either query layout services using the GraphQL query, and another you can query it using the REST API, which is a general common one. There are two methods present inside this layout service. One is the item method, so that if you want to fetch the entire layout information of the item number that you are providing, you can use that one. Or if you want any particular only specific placeholder information that you need to provide, you can use the next placeholder method. So no problem.
Sorry. So as Mahima mentioned that layout services two endpoints, graph one is the best one and the other one is the GraphQL endpoint. Alright. Well, the other one is the GraphQL endpoint. So let us now look at what GraphQL is all about. So GraphQL is a query language for your APIs. It is a very effective and flexible way of fetching data from the API endpoints, and it is flexible, and one of the benefits of using it is that it reduces the round trips that you make to the server side when you are fetching data from the client. Another important or another useful feature of GraphQL is that you fetch only the data that you need. You fetch, because it is a query language, you write the queries to fetch the data that you would require, and you get only that without any instances. This happens with the traditional way of doing things, that you get the entire set of the object. The other thing with GraphQL is that you can club multiple data sources in one single query. So if suppose you want to query two different items and you want to fetch that data in single request, you can do that using the GraphQL. So if you're talking about GraphQL, the Sitecore for GraphQL provides a very friendly tool, which I guess if you have worked on Headless Sitecore projects, you must be aware of this, that the playground. So playground gives you a graphical user interface where you can write your queries there. It has the intelligence built in so that it provides you suggestions of what kind of schema that you should have, what kind of fields that are built in, and what kind of data that you would get out of that response after you run it. And if you look at the GraphQL queries, GraphQL queries are of three types: query, mutation, and subscriptions. Sitecore only supports the first two, query, mutations. Queries is simple that you query already existing data and you get it. Mutations are used for creating, updating, and upserting. So the layout service, which Mahima mentioned in the previous slide, is only for querying data. You cannot create content using that API endpoint. So you use the GraphQL API queries there, and then there's mutation, which is supported by another Sitecore API, which is Sitecore authoring and management API, which is available within TypeScript. Now, if you want to, we'd like to show you a quick overview of, or a quick demo of the GraphQL endpoint. Alright. So this is not the GraphQL playground. So you see this is the GraphQL playground. After you set up once, I remember when I was setting up my first Headless project, to verify that the Headless services are set up correctly and to see that the solution is working fine, the project is working fine. One way was that we used to hit this URL and if it loads the GraphQL playground, then it means that the setup is done correctly. One important thing that you should be aware of when using this, and without which the GraphQL playground will not work, is the API key that you see here. The API key parameter that you see, this is the API key that you define, and this is what authorizes or forms connection between GraphQL and your CM. So as you can see, we have a simple query written down here, and a GraphQL query has multiple elements to that one. It has fields, it has variables, it has aliases, and it also has fragments. In this example, we have tried to cover all of that. If you can see, this is a field. Alright, this is a field by the name title, and then we have given it an alias that we want to. If I want to fetch this field title with a different name, I can go ahead and edit it here. And then we also have, this is a query. It supports, if I go down, this is a fragment. So fragment is a very useful piece when you're writing a huge lengthy query, and you want to fetch, suppose these name. I want to fetch these two fields from each of the elements, from various different items. I'm not going to write this piece of code like 10 times in my query. I'm going to create a fragment and call it inside my query like so. You see this? Children, I have called the fragment title fields, and yes, you see this? We have given the data source in here that we should get all the children of the home item in the language again. So this is our item title field, and the children's we just have how many 2 items, and this is the response that you get. Now this is very helpful when you are writing huge queries. You don't have to write the query in the .ts file or in files that then test it on the runtime. You can quickly use this playground to write your queries and also see what response you get. Another cool thing here is that you have these docs, helping docs, and they provide you data like what kind of information, what you will fetch out of those fields, and also the schema for the templates and for the items that already come out of the box has been defined. So item field and all of these things you can see here, you can download this and use it. You have to define the schema when you're using the layout query, GraphQL query in your components. So this was quickly about the GraphQL. Let's move on to the presentation. Alright. So the other services like we saw the major ones, and these are the services which come inside the services package. which are the first one is the media handler. Like the name suggests, it is how this handles how Sitecore or responds to the media request. This is configured. Earlier when JSS was released, you had to install a package to enable headless features, but now with the rendering SDKs and Excel Cloud, all of those things, when you set up the solution, all of these things come configured. And then the second one is the dictionary service. So you must have used dictionary items in the traditional implementations. Traditional Sitecore implementations, this dictionary service is headless service, which gives you the dictionary data in the front-end application with the response in the layout service response. And the third one, which is the form service that we wanted to touch on, is the service that enables you to integrate Sitecore forms with your front-end applications. It provides a REST API which gives you all of the form data using the layout service and the content resolve. And also it accepts form response and gives you a JSON of the successful if the form submission has been successful. And then we quickly move on to the underlying technology. So we quickly saw that what are the major headless services that enable the headless way of doing things within Sitecore. Now we will quickly look at the underlying technologies, a few things that are imperative for the developer to know when they start on an headless project or an example.
Okay. So as I already said, that most of the commonly used rendering SDK is JSS rendering SDK. So we are going to cover a few of the technologies that are must to develop a particular project or application using JSS rendering SDK. The first one that comes into picture is Docker. So what is Docker? Docker is an open source platform that itself is capable of either building or shipping or running your entire application on its own. So if we consider or if we try to remember the traditional CMS, when we need to install Sitecore, we need to take care of all of the prerequisites. We need to install all of the required application or prerequisites as we are, either it is Solar or operating system or particular SQL version. We need to take care of all of those things. And if we have multiple applications and on different versions of Sitecore, it was a headache because we had to manage them together. Also, there was a scenario where in the higher environment infrastructure and the lower environment infrastructure was not matching. So there were few issues that we faced on higher environment were not replicable properly on the lower environment. Docker comes into the help in this case. So what Docker do is build everything, like build the complete containers on its own, and it can totally separate your infrastructure and your application so that you can quickly build any application and deliver it quickly. There are a few things that makes the Docker complete. So the first one is container. Container is executable software that comprises of attached code, a package of code, and all of its dependencies together, so that we can execute the container anywhere, be it your local machine, be it on-premise system, be it any other higher environment or anywhere. Then how this container gets created? Container gets created from images. They get data from images. Where does images get stored? Images get stored in the registry. What is registry? Registry can be either like open source or they can be a private one from where you can fetch the data of a particular images. And images act as a blueprint for creating a container. And once you create a particular image, it is immutable. One image can be dependent on another image, so you can create a layer of images altogether. Now that we know what is container, how do we build the container, and where do we fetch the image from, the main question that comes into picture is how do we do it, or how do we make everything work together on any other platform. So there are two things those are important to learn here or to understand. One is Dockerfile and another is Docker Compose. So let's first see the Docker Compose. It's a CLI tool, a binary-based file that exists in our application. So it's a CLI tool that contains the source of the image from where we are going to fetch the image, the other configurations, the commands that we need to run over those images, and how those images are going to get integrated. All those things are contained inside the YAML. We can have multiple Docker Compose YAML. So, like by default, Sitecore provides us a Docker Compose YAML, and we in our application, if we need to add more things or more configuration to those images, or we need to create more rendering containers at our end, we write a Docker Compose YAML, so it can be overridden. What is Dockerfile? Dockerfile is normally a text file that contains all of the instructions that needs to be executed so that it creates or assemble the images that is everything to be worked together. This is all about Docker. So here is a quick image of Docker. How does Docker container work? So if you see inside a single container, there is application, there are all the dependencies, libraries, all of the configuration, everything that you need inside one container, and it works. Next is Docker images. So you can see there are Docker images in the layer form. First one contain only information related to or configuration related to XP. Second is written over XP, which contain XP also, and third one is last one which contains, which refer XP and SP, and it is written over like for SXA things are written out there too. The next technology that comes into picture here is Next.js. So why Next.js? While CMS platforms are moving towards headless, Next.js is evolving or emerging as one of the best platform of choice for building the fast-paced enterprise level applications. That is why we are going to see the Next.js here. Next.js it's a full-stack flexible React framework that provides you the building blocks to create lightly coupled and faster applications. Without giving too much time on what Next.js is, there are a few things that we need to be aware about while using Next.js rendering SDK and developing your application using Next.js. So I'm going to share So here is how this is been a solution, frontend solution, which has been created using the starter kit provided by Sitecore itself. We have selected Next.js rendering SDK for that. If you see the structure of the solution, there are multiple folders that come into picture. So first that we are going to see is page routing. As you all know, that in Sitecore how does page routing work? The way of structure we create the items inside the tree, this is how the URL gets formed for a particular item. But what if we are not aware if there is a bucketable item or if there are block items and we are not aware what kind of a URL is going to come, and we don't want to, if there are bulk item, we don't need to apply presentation on everything, or there is some situation where you need to handle those type of pages differently. So in the traditional CMS, we used to write URL resolver to resolve those URLs. Next.js helps here. It already provides a very simple dynamic routing, page routing. So in here it is pages. So whenever a request comes, whenever a user requests a particular URL from browser, Next.js comes here, tries to see if that particular same page or same page structure is present or not. If that is present, it executes that particular page. Otherwise, there is a catch or log, which is .part.ts. So if I'm requesting a particular URL and that format or that structure of page URL is not present, then it will go to catch or log, and that particular code will get applied and layout will get applied to your particular page. Here I have created the blog example that I was talking about. So I have already created a blog. So there will be a blog listing. I did not add to this code just to avoid the confusion. So there will be blog listing, and inside blog listing we are not sure, but we need to handle it that whatever blog detail page comes, it should apply or it should run using this particular page so that we can, for example, call different services to get particular data from third party. So if we see, try to read this page. Sorry. So what I have done here is, I have created a blog item, and inside blog item I have created blog 1 and blog 2. And if I try to request it, so the box is done.
So when we use, just like to add some point, when we're using Headless, we are doing things, our CMs is separated from the front end. So we should be reading local host or our front end application URL, but we will be facing some technical issues with running the local host or the front end applications. And when we tried it last time, it was working with that slash block one and was resolving that. So if you cannot see like this, we can go.
So I just tried to open an experience editor, which was blog listing page, and you can see the blog listing page data is getting displayed here, which I added into this particular index.css, which is blog listing page. And if I now try to load blog 1, I'm not sure that there is no problem layout service going on. So if everything works properly, and if I try to load that block 1 and block 2, it is going to get rendered from another TSX file, which is block name, and whatever layout I want to apply here, I can apply that. There are 3 types of pre-rendering methods that Next.js comes with or Next.js provides, and it is completely supported by Next.js SDK project. The 3 are SSR, SSG, and ISR. So as the name suggests, SSR is server-side rendering. So whenever you have a requirement to have server-side calls and not the client-side thing. So if you want to have, okay. So yeah, this is SSR, SSG. So if you need to have server-side calls, if we consider a requirement that we need to have authentication in place, we need to get some authorization token from some services. It cannot be a client-side for security purposes. We cannot open that token inside the client. To get that or to implement that or to achieve that particular thing, you can do a SSR call. Next is static site generation, as the name suggests. If you want to do a static site call, then the data is not going to get updated very frequently. If you want to cache it, you want to do it statically, you want to render it statically, you can use SSG. But if you want to revalidate that page, if you want to refresh that particular page, then ISR comes into picture. ISR is incremental static regeneration. So what is that? It provides you a single parameter which is revalidate, and in revalidate it accepts the value into the settings. So if you call a SSG, you have a static site generation call, and if you add revalidate in 5 seconds, so it will check in every 5-second interval whether the page has changed or not, and it will update the HTML, and this is how it works. This was all about pre-rendering methods. Then there is a middleware that you should be aware about. So if you guys remember that global.ash we used to have in .NET application. So whatever request that comes from browser, it first reaches global.ash. This is the same case in middleware.tsx also. So middleware.tx. So this is the file which receives the request at the very first, and whatever the way you want to manipulate the request, either you want to rewrite, you want to apply a redirect, you want to make any manipulations into the header that is getting responded, or you just want to directly respond to a particular request, you can do those changes here. If you see, it comes by default with the starter kit, and they have a matcher here, which means that which kind of work like ignore URL prefix config value that we used to have in our traditional CMS. So whatever URL we write here is not going to look into Sitecore items path, and it is going to statically run the pages. Some more things that we see here as is component folder. So all of the libraries that we want to create, all of the components will be there inside components in the form of TSX. Neha is going to give a complete demo over there on how to create a component. Few more things that we see here is layout.tsx. So this layout.tsx is almost same like the layout that we apply on Sitecore. And you can see that in layout we generally have placeholder. So in here also we have placeholder and you can add any kind of components from Sitecore using this one. There are 404.tsx and 500.tsx. So Next.js statically creates 404 and 500 pages, and whenever a particular error has occurred or if particular item that is requested is not found, it renders this particular .tsx file. However, with SXA, they have provided an option. You can configure it using the console like a normal SXA. JSX is also providing an option. And in this case, like if it is a 404, and if you have provided a particular URL for that 404 page, which is content observable, it will do a GraphQL call to that service and render that content if in case of 404 happens. This was all about Next.js, which we need to understand before starting a project on Next.js and investigate. Next is
Vercel. After we've looked at the JSS 20 SDKs and using Next.js to build our frontend application, it feels about right to see where you would be hosting these frontend applications. So Vercel comes into picture then. Vercel is a cloud platform for hosting your applications, web applications which are made using the modern JavaScript frameworks. It supports frameworks like React, Next.js, Vue, and Angular, and you can build these applications. And what Vercel does is that it frees you of the worry of the infrastructure. It takes care of that, and you can totally focus on building and deploying your applications. Now, Mahima talked about a couple of features of Next.js. Vercel was built by the creators of Next.js, so all of the things that provides is supported by Vercel. So Vercel supports serverless computing, which enables using serverless functions. Like you want to run some code, you want to do some processing on server side, you can do that using serverless functions. It also supports static site generation, which we just saw that you can build your pages on the build time, and you can deploy those pages onto your Vercel frontend applications, and whenever your website receives a request for those pages, it will be served from those already existing pages there. So it supports SSG as well, and there are the other features that are quick deployment. You can just deploy your Next.js application with a few clicks. When I was exploring Next.js and when I was wanting to understand how things work on the Next.js side, what I did was I created a hobby account with Next.js. They provide that. And on the Vercel side, they provide a hobby account which is free of cost. You can build a small Next.js as local and just see and deploy it with a few commands and see how things work there. So that is really helpful, which I would suggest you to do if you are starting on a Next.js project. Sitecore has another cloud hosting platform, which is Netlify, that they have partnered with, so you can host your frontend applications on Vercel as well as Netlify. Now the next thing that we are looking at is the experience edge. So experience edge is not compulsory or not mandatory if you are working with Sitecore XP, but with your XM cloud. So there is no web database there, you publish it to the experience edge. Now, so what experience edge is all about? So experience edge is a globally scalable SaaS API service which stores your Sitecore products information. The products that Experience Edge supports right now are Sitecore XM Cloud, Content Hub, and Content Hub 1. So when your project has an Experience Edge integration, you would not be publishing content to the CD layer or CD server of the environment which has web database. You would be publishing you would be publishing it to a Sitecore hosted CDN, which is globally available. Now, when you're using it with Sitecore XM or XM Cloud, what will get published into or what will be stored in Experience Edge, everything that Mahima described in layout service. It stores the entire layout information in the JSON format, and whenever and your frontend applications can retrieve the data, will read the data from there and render it onto the websites. So if we look at, it's written there that it supports It has GraphQL. It has two GraphQL endpoints. One is the preview API, GraphQL preview API, and the other one is the delivery API. So when we are doing local development, we do not use Experience Edge. Instead, we use the preview API, which is used for your editing purposes and which fetch data from the CM instance only. It fetches data from CM instance, the master database. On your local instance supports editing, authoring content, and serves your front-end application as well. But when you move into the higher environments, preview API supports editing in the sense that it powers the experience editor. And the other one is the delivery API, and if you can see the URL of the delivery API, it will be same for all of your Sitecore implementations. The delivery API is edge.sitecore.cloud.io, which means that this is the locally hosted CDN. This contains all of your published data, which the content authors, after they are done editing and authoring the content they published, and this will be available on your front-end or your front-end applications of the higher models. If we quickly look at how Experience Edge fits into your solution, so you can see in the bottom we have the CM content management tool, where all of the content is authored and edited, and then we have an Edge connector which provides the output in the JSON format. It does not only store the layout information, all of the page data, but also stores the media information, all of the related media goes into the Edge platform, and you can see the client browser. And there are multiple ways you can fetch Experience Edge data in your front-end applications. Now, if we quickly move on to the next developer essentials. So that was all. We are heading to the last part of our session, and we would want to talk about a couple of things, or three of the things that each developer would do when working on a Headless project. So Sitecore is data, and Sitecore is items and pages and which are filled with components. So one of the basic things that we do is to create a component. So how has the way of creating components changed with the introduction of Headless and SDKs? The fundamentals have not changed. You will still create a template, you will still create a rendering. Instead of creating a view rendering or a controller rendering, you would be creating a JSON rendering, because we are using Next.js and JSON renderings in Sitecore. That is how you do, that is the Sitecore part of it. Now when we used to create controller renderings, we used to create our .cshtml files, which used to be our view files. Instead of .cshtml files that our frontend now sits in the Next.js application, you would be creating React components, which would be with the extension .tsx. And now how the Sitecore side of things and the Next.js side of things are linked. When you are creating, if you work with React and Next.js, you know that we export components there. So the component name should match to the component name that you have configured in Sitecore. And then all of the data that you would need, all of the data source data that you have defined in Sitecore would be available in your React component through component props. One way, the layout service already gives you the output of all of the components or all of the fields that you have defined in the template. But if you want to modify the output, or if you want to fetch some extra information with the response, with the details of your template, you can do so by using the GraphQL. So the JSON rendering has a field where you can put your GraphQL query, and when the component is being rendered, it will fetch the response of that query and will supply it to your React component. And then also, like, we do not create just simple components, we create nested components. So everything that you create with .csx files, you can do it with the .tsx React components. You can add placeholders into that. You can nest placeholders. And one thing that you just have to do is that you should allow those placeholders into your renderings. We are just about time we will have you do a demo, but we will spare it. We will continue to the two other parts that we have pending. Next one is debugging and logs.
Okay, so whenever you are working on a particular application, not most, but a lot of time you spend is, I guess, debugging. Is it the case with everybody or just me?
No.
I guess the smiling says that it's the case with everybody, that's fine. So, when using the traditional CMS, what you used to do is you just used to use the existing Sitecore libraries to log in for the logging purposes on the browser. And what you used to do, you used to just inspect that from the browser and you used to put the breakpoint, or you can add a function log over there. The same thing works here also. For the front-end application debugging, you can use console.log, but Sitecore already provides an npm, which basically helps in debugging. What are the benefits of using this particular debug is you don't have to take care about removing those console.logs before you push your code to the production or higher environments. This particular the logs that will get displayed inside the whatever you are logging or whatever you are debugging, those messages will get displayed or come inside the log file only when you configure it from the environment variable. There is an environment variable called as debug. You can add multiple options that Sitecore provides. So if you want to log everything that you have added inside your code, wherever you add like debug dot, there are different layout services also. Like there are different services that Sitecore has provided for this logging purpose. So you can like write layout or debug dot layout service, debug dot GraphQL service, and it is going to do those logins. So if you add like JSS hyphen star, it is going to log everything, and it has also provided like different parameters that you can set up so that those particular logs will appear on the higher environment. If you want to make those logs appear on the browser console itself, then you can use local storage dot and whatever the log that you have applied, and it will get displayed on your browser itself. Regarding server-side logging, if it is .NET code, like we still have to write some .NET code for content resolver. In that case, you can use the traditional logging that we used to do. But if you need to log something from server side, that debugging there. If you need to log what is there happening on the server side and you are not logging there, it's a local environment. You can use it, or you can do the tracing of logs from Docker logs. If you are using like Docker desktop or you are using format desktop, they have that UI present there where you can just click on whatever container you want to debug and you can check the log file. There is also a way to put attach to a process or put a debugger inside Visual Studio. So you just have to select which particular C1 rendering you want to attach the process to, and you can attach that debugger. This was all related to debugging. The next slide consists of the best practices. So here are the few best practices that we should. There are many best practices that we should be aware of, but most of them are related to Sitecore and those did not change, and those are still the same. These are something related to Next.js rendering SDK. Preserve support for author control custom route. As if you remember, we have already seen they have custom route in Next.js, which we discussed earlier. But Sitecore suggests that as much as you can, you have to allow content author to edit or take care of the page routing. You can add dynamic page routing only in case if it is needed. Next is be mindful of third-party dependencies, packages, and modules. See if there are lots of NPM packages available because this is open source, and you can just get those or install those NPM packages and use those libraries to quickly develop everything. But it does not mean that you should bring each and every library into your project or application. You should first do a complete research that is it going to have a bad impact over your application, is it going to impact the performance or any other thing, is it too big for bundling purposes, so you should be aware before adding or involving any other third-party NPM package. The next is developing application compatible with server-side rendering. Why is that? They are saying that you have to be respectful of server-side rendering. You have to develop your application so that it's supposed to server-side rendering. Why? Because in Experience Editor, you have to allow content author to edit everything at the runtime. If it is static, it is not going to change, you will not be able to update the content. So you have to make sure that your application is supporting server-side rendering so that it can be edited using Experience Editor also. The next is consider storing Sitecore backend code and JSS site code in the same source control repository just for the maintainability purposes. The next is automate the deployments of Sitecore updates and JSS site updates in the headless mode into single build process. Why in the single build process? It is recommended to do it in single page console, because it should not be the case that we deploy something on the Vercel side and the front-end application, it is where data is not present in the CMS itself, and then it will start throwing exceptions. Okay, the data is not present. So you should develop a pipeline wherein it should get deployed on the XM side first, on the Sitecore side first. If it is the XM cloud, it should get deployed on the XM cloud first, and then it can get deployed to Vercel on the front-end side. The next is focus on patch performance. So one of our senior has noted that if it is an HDS does not mean it is really fast in all of the cases. So you need to be very careful related to what you are building, how you are building, what approaches you are taking, what kind of hooks you are using, what kind of bundling tools you are applying, how long your files are getting. So again, it comes to the modularity part, how careful you are while developing the application. You cannot be careful in this case. And the last one is if using XML Cloud, build component compatible with page tool as well. So with traditional XML, we were only worried about how to make the pages compatible with Experience Editor. We had many options present to simply build it and we were a custom build it. With XML Cloud, we are keeping the pages also and also the Explorer. You have to make sure most of the things that work in Experience Editor works in pages also, but there are still few things that are not supported by the pages. Suppose recently we came up with a problem that multi-list is not getting displayed over there if you want to add random parameter or something. So you need to make sure that everything that you are building on your developing should be supported by pages, XML pages also if you are choosing XML as a platform. I guess we end our presentation here. Time is already up, and
we hope make the best use of your 45 minutes and you are leaving with some information. Thank you all for being seated till the end. I did not see anybody leaving in between, but thank you if you joined in between. Thank you so much. We're done.
Thank you.